The set didn't feel like a movie set, felt like a courtroom, not because anyone was yelling, not because there was chaos, but because every person in the room was paying attention in that specific, uncomfortable way people pay attention when something real might happen inside something staged. The pagoda set rose in the middle of the soundstage like a bright yellow dare. Panels stacked like steps, geometric and clean, designed to look spiritual and symbolic on camera while being nothing more than wood, paint, and careful lighting. The mats beneath were new enough to still smell faintly of rubber and glue, but already dusted with chalk from rehearsals. The air was warm with tungsten lights and the quiet fatigue of a crew that had been working for hours without the relief of laughter. No one wanted to be the person who ruined this scene, and everyone knew it could be ruined. Two legends were sharing the same frame. Bruce Lee, compact and coiled, with eyes that made people feel like he could see the thought before it formed. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, towering and controlled, the kind of athlete whose presence changed the architecture of a room. He didn't have to say anything to make people adjust their posture. They did it automatically. It wasn't fear. It was instinct. He was simply too much human to ignore. The crew respected them both. That was the problem. Respect makes people quiet. Quiet makes tension louder. Bruce stood barefoot on the mat, a towel over one shoulder, breathing slow through his nose like he was counting the air. He wasn't showing off. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't throwing shadow kicks to remind anyone who he was. He was still in the way disciplined fighters get still, like they were saving every ounce of energy for the moment it mattered. Kareem stood a few steps away, in dark training clothes, arms loose at his sides, watching Bruce with a face that didn't reveal much. Kareem had learned long ago how to keep his expression neutral. When you are watched your entire life, you learn how to hide your real reactions behind calm. You learn to keep people from renting your emotions. The director hovered near the monitor, trying to look casual and failing. Producers pretended to talk about schedules while listening with their eyes. The stunt coordinator kept checking the mat edges as if the mat could solve what he couldn't control. Pride. Because pride was in the room too. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that shows up when two men know they're being measured, even if no one says it out loud. The scene they were about to shoot wasn't designed to be a brawl. It wasn't meant to look like two brutes crashing into each other. It was meant to look like philosophy in motion, strength versus skill, reach versus timing, certainty versus adaptability. And somewhere underneath that choreography, underneath the symbolism, there was a practical truth that the crew felt in their bones. Kareem could hurt Bruce by accident. Not because Kareem wanted to, because Kareem was Kareem. A long limb moving fast doesn't need malice to be dangerous. It just needs momentum. The stunt coordinator had already given the speech twice. Slow first, controlled.
No improvisation. No ego.
Everyone nodding, everyone agreeing, and still the air felt sharp. Bruce looked at Kareem and said something quietly. Kareem leaned slightly, listening. They weren't arguing. They were calibrating. But the crew couldn't tell the difference because the difference between calibration and conflict is sometimes just one wrong tone. Kareem's voice came low, controlled. "You sure about this angle?" he asked. Bruce nodded once. "Yes," he said. Kareem's eyes narrowed slightly. "You want it close." Bruce's gaze didn't blink. "Close," he confirmed. Kareem hesitated just a fraction. "Bruce," he said, careful. "My reach is—" "I know your reach," Bruce replied. The words weren't sharp, but they were firm. They carried that quiet authority Bruce had when he was serious. Not a shout, not a threat. An assumption that the room would obey because the room always did. Kareem's jaw tightened a little. Not anger, concern. The kind of concern that gets mistaken for challenge when men don't want to admit they're worried. "You're asking me to strike toward you," Kareem said. Bruce's mouth twitched, almost amused, but his eyes stayed steady. "I'm asking you to aim," he corrected. Kareem blinked. "Aim where?" Bruce lifted a hand and tapped the center of his own chest lightly, like he was indicating a target on a board. Then he said the line, calm as if he were ordering tea. "Aim for my chest." The words landed hard. People don't like hearing that kind of sentence on a set. Not from a man who could actually get hurt. Especially not from a man whose name was already becoming myth. Myths are supposed to be untouchable. Myths are supposed to be protected from reality. Kareem stared at Bruce, and for a second the mask slipped. There was disbelief in his eyes. And something else, responsibility. Bruce, Kareem said, voice lower now. That's not. Bruce stepped closer. Not into Kareem's space. Into the space of certainty. Into the place where men decide whether fear gets to vote. I want you to aim, Bruce repeated. Not to hit me. To aim. Kareem's brow furrowed. Why? Bruce looked around, just briefly. Not at the crew, not at the director, at the set itself. The yellow steps. The symbolism. The story. The idea. Then back to Kareem. Because the audience can feel when you're lying, Bruce said quietly. They can't explain it, but they feel it. If your strike is fake, the scene becomes fake. Kareem's voice tightened. And if my strike is real? Bruce didn't smile. He didn't reassure. He just said, then we control it. That answer didn't satisfy Kareem, because Kareem had lived long enough to know some things can't be controlled once they're in motion. But he also saw something in Bruce's face that made him pause. Bruce wasn't reckless. He wasn't trying to prove he was fearless. He was trying to prove something else. That courage wasn't just throwing yourself into danger. Courage was insisting on truth when everyone around you wanted comfort. The director called out, "We ready?" Bruce didn't take his eyes off Kareem. He nodded once toward the director without looking. "Ready," Bruce said. Kareem's throat moved as he swallowed. He looked briefly toward the stunt coordinator as if to ask for backup. But the coordinator's face said what everyone's face said. This is between them. Kareem looked back down at Bruce, and the room held its breath. "You're telling me," Kareem said carefully, "to aim at your chest and you'll do what?" Bruce's voice stayed calm. "I'll show you distance," he said. "Timing. The line you think you're taking versus the line you're actually taking." Kareem frowned. "With my chest." Bruce nodded. "Because your mind believes it's dangerous," Bruce said. "So your body tells the truth." That was the kind of statement that sounded like poetry until you realized it was also a warning. Kareem exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "But I'm not." "I know," Bruce said. "You're not trying to hurt me." He paused, then added softer, "You're trying to not hurt me." Kareem blinked. Bruce's eyes held him. "That's the difference," he said. "And that difference shows on camera." The director raised a hand. "Quiet on set." The assistant director echoed it. The crew tightened into readiness. The camera operator settled into position. The boom mic hovered. The monitor glowed. The world shrank into the rectangle of the lens. "Rolling." The camera purred. "Action." Kareem stepped forward into frame like a shadow with bones. He was tall enough to make the staircase look smaller behind him, and the costume made him feel even more like the final gatekeeper in a myth. His face was controlled, but his eyes were alive. Bruce moved in front of him, calm, precise, hands loose but ready. The choreography began. It was clean. It was controlled. Kareem's long arms moved like beams. Bruce's body moved like water. The illusion worked because the discipline was real. And then the moment arrived. The moment Bruce had insisted on. Kareem set his stance. His shoulders rolled. He drew his arm back. Not like a punch, not like an attack, but like a deliberate line being drawn through air. The strike was meant to stop short. It was meant to threaten. It was meant to look like it could land without actually landing. But Bruce had told him to aim. So Kareem aimed. His hand cut forward, fast. Faster than Kareem intended, because once a limb like that starts moving, it doesn't move halfway. It moves fully. It moves honestly. Bruce didn't flinch. He moved. Not backward. Not away. He stepped inside the line. He turned his torso just slightly, like a door swinging on a hinge. And in that motion, he brought Kareem's arm across a different angle than Kareem expected. It happened in an instant. Too fast for the crew to parse. Too smooth for anyone to realize where the danger actually was until it was already there. Bruce's forearm rose and pressed. Not hard, not violently, but precisely, against a vulnerable line of the body. Not a strike, not a blow, a lock, pressure point, a lesson. Kareem's eyes widened. For one fraction of a second, his posture stayed tall. Then his breath stopped. Not because he was choking the way people imagine choking. There was no Hollywood throat grab, no dramatic hands around the neck. It was worse because it was quieter. It was the sudden realization that air, the most automatic thing in the world, had become something he had to fight for. Kareem's chest expanded instinctively, and nothing happened. His lungs wanted to pull in air, but the pathway felt interrupted by a pressure that wasn't painful, just absolute. Like a switch had been flipped. Bruce's voice came calm and low, like a teacher speaking during a test. "Now," Bruce said softly, "you can't breathe." The crew didn't react at first because they thought it was acting. That's the trap of a good illusion. When something real happens, people assume it's part of the plan. Kareem's hands lifted. Not dramatic, just reflex, toward Bruce's arm. His face didn't contort into fear yet. Kareem was too disciplined for that. But his eyes changed. The calm mask cracked into something raw. Surprise. The director leaned toward the monitor, fascinated. "Great," he murmured, thinking it was performance. But the stunt coordinator's face tightened. He stepped forward half a pace, ready to call it. Kareem tried to inhale again. Nothing. His body did what big bodies do when they're denied oxygen. Tried to force its way through. Tensed. Surged. But Bruce wasn't using brute force. He was using leverage. And leverage doesn't care how strong you are, because it isn't arguing with your strength. It's redirecting it. Kareem's knees bent slightly. The gym giant, the man who had dominated basketball courts with grace and power, suddenly looked vulnerable in the most humiliating way possible. Not weak, but human. The crew finally realized something was off because Kareem wasn't acting like an actor. He was acting like an athlete who had lost control of something he always controlled. The stunt coordinator shouted, "Cut!" The director didn't. He was still watching the monitor, still hypnotized. The coordinator shouted again, louder, "Cut! Cut!" The assistant director echoed it. "Cut!" The camera operator hesitated, then stopped the camera. The room snapped back into reality. Kareem's chest rose again. His eyes flashed with urgent confusion. Why isn't air happening? Bruce released the pressure immediately. Not triumphantly, not smug. Instantly, like he had been waiting for the exact moment the lesson was received. Kareem inhaled sharply. Air rushed in like a flood breaking through a dam. He took another breath, then another, chest expanding hard, shoulders lifting. He stepped back, not panicked, but shaken. The soundstage was silent except for Kareem's breathing. Bruce stood still, hands down, face calm. Not cold, just controlled. Kareem stared at him, eyes wide. "That was 4 seconds," Bruce said quietly. Kareem swallowed, still catching breath. "What?" he started, then stopped because he didn't know what word to use. Bruce didn't fill the silence with bravado. He let Kareem own the moment. The stunt coordinator rushed in, palms up, furious. "What the hell was that?" he snapped, looking between them. "We're not." Bruce lifted a hand gently. "He's fine," Bruce said. Kareem's voice came out strained but controlled. "I'm fine," he confirmed, then paused and added honestly, "But I couldn't breathe." The coordinator stared at Bruce. "You can't do that." Bruce's eyes didn't harden, but his voice did. "I can," he said. "And I just did." The coordinator looked like he wanted to explode, but Kareem raised a hand slightly, signaling him to stop. Kareem's gaze stayed locked on Bruce. "You did that," Kareem said, slowly. "Without hitting me." Bruce nodded once. "Yes," he said. Kareem's breath finally steadied. His voice lowered. "How?" Bruce's answer was simple. "Angle," he said. "Distance. Timing." Kareem blinked, still absorbing. "You told me to aim for your chest," he said, voice almost accusing. Bruce nodded again. "Yes." Kareem's jaw tightened. "You used my movement." Bruce's eyes stayed calm. Yes. Kareem stared at him like he was looking at a new kind of math. Then Kareem said something that made the room feel even quieter, because it was the closest thing Kareem had to admitting vulnerability. That was scary. Bruce didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. He nodded. Good, he said softly. Now you understand the point. Kareem's brow furrowed. The point is you can stop someone bigger. Bruce's gaze softened slightly. The point is, he corrected, you can stop yourself from hurting someone smaller. Kareem blinked. Bruce continued, voice low. When you aim, he said, your body commits. When your body commits, it becomes honest. Honest movement can be redirected. Dishonest movement is unpredictable. Kareem swallowed again. So you wanted me to feel what it's like? Bruce nodded. Yes, he said, because you're careful. Too careful. Kareem's eyes narrowed. Too careful. Bruce's voice stayed calm. You were holding back, he said. And it made you sloppy. It made you reach with your arm instead of moving with your whole body. Kareem stared. Holding back makes you sloppy? Bruce nodded. If you don't commit, he said, you don't control your own line. You think you're being safe, but you're actually guessing. Kareem looked away briefly, shame flickering. Because he knew it was true. Kareem had been trying to protect Bruce by being cautious, but that caution had made his movement uncertain. Uncertainty is where accidents live. The director finally stepped in, annoyed now. Okay, he said. That was whatever that was. Let's not do that again. We need the shot, but we don't need a hospital. The producer nodded aggressively, eager to agree with safety. Kareem didn't look at the director. He kept looking at Bruce. Do it again, Kareem said quietly. The director froze. What? The stunt coordinator's eyes widened. No. Kareem lifted a hand, still breathing evenly now. Not the pressure, he clarified. The lesson. The line. Bruce looked at Kareem carefully. Why? Kareem's jaw worked. Then he said it. Because I need to know, he said. That I won't hurt you. Bruce held his gaze. The crew watched, startled. Kareem wasn't demanding now. He wasn't posturing. He was asking. Bruce nodded slowly. All right, he said. Slow. Kareem nodded. Slow, he agreed. The stunt coordinator exhaled in frustration but stepped closer, ready to intervene if needed. Bruce stepped back onto the mark. Aim for my chest, he repeated, like a mantra. Kareem lifted his arm again, but this time his face was different. Not confident, focused, respectful. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to learn. He moved forward slowly, aiming. Bruce moved inside the line again, turning his torso, guiding the arm, showing the angle, not applying the pressure, just demonstrating the path. Kareem felt it in his shoulder, in his balance. He felt how his own momentum could be redirected if his feet weren't placed correctly. Bruce stopped, still holding Kareem's arm lightly. This is where you lose your breath, Bruce said quietly, indicating the point without pressing. Kareem swallowed. Bruce released him. Kareem stepped back and nodded once. I get it, Kareem murmured. Bruce looked at him and said something so simple it made Kareem's eyes tighten again. Good, Bruce said. Now you can protect me. Kareem stared, and something shifted in him. Something beyond choreography. He'd spent his life being the big one, the dominant one, the one who had to make others adjust. But in this moment he realized something subtle and humiliating in a way that felt strangely freeing. Being big didn't mean being in control. Control was a separate skill. And Bruce had it. They reset for filming. The director looked wary now, like he'd seen a ghost. Producers hovered. The crew moved as if carefulness could erase what they had witnessed. Rolling. The assistant director called again. Action. This time, Kareem's strike looked more real and safer at the same time. Because now he wasn't guessing. He wasn't holding back in a way that made his movement unpredictable. He committed with control. He moved his feet. He managed distance. Bruce moved with him, not against him. Their timing locked in like gears. The scene became what it was supposed to be. Tension that looked dangerous but was actually disciplined. When the director called cut, the room exhaled. Some crew members clapped quietly. Not because it was entertainment, because it was relief. Kareem stepped off the mat and walked toward Bruce. The set watched again, but this time the watching felt different. Less hungry, more respectful. Like they were witnessing a private agreement between two men who had earned each other. Kareem stopped in front of Bruce, towering, but not trying to tower. He spoke low. "I'm sorry," he said. Bruce's eyes narrowed slightly. "For what?" Kareem's voice was steady. "For thinking I could keep you safe by holding back," he said. "For thinking my size was enough." Bruce nodded once, accepting it. Kareem continued, and his next words were the ones that mattered. "And for doubting you," he added. Bruce didn't smile. He didn't flex. He didn't take the apology like a trophy. He simply nodded again. "Thank you," he said. Kareem swallowed. "I didn't know you could do that," he admitted. Bruce's voice stayed gentle. "Most people don't," he said. "That's why it works." Kareem's eyes tightened. "That wasn't a trick," he said, almost defensively. "That was—" Bruce finished the sentence for him. "Physics," he said. Kareem let out a short laugh. Quiet. Surprised. "Yeah," he said. "Physics." The stunt coordinator approached cautiously, still angry but also curious. "Bruce," he said. "What was that? You can't just—" Bruce looked at him, calm. "He asked me to show him," Bruce said. The coordinator looked to Kareem as if expecting contradiction. Kareem nodded. "I asked," he confirmed. The coordinator exhaled, defeated. "All right," he said. "No more 4-second breathing lessons. We do it safe." Bruce nodded. "Safe," he agreed. Kareem watched Bruce for a moment longer, then said quietly, "You didn't do it to embarrass me." Bruce met his eyes. "No," he said. Kareem's voice softened. "You did it so I'd respect the line." Bruce nodded. "Yes," he said. Kareem's chest rose with a slow breath. "I respect it," he said. Bruce's gaze held him. "Good," he repeated. Later, during a break, Kareem sat alone on a folding chair near the edge of the set, a bottle of water in his hand, staring at the yellow steps like he was seeing them differently. Bruce sat nearby, stretching, calm as always. Kareem finally spoke. "You know what that felt like?" he asked quietly. Bruce didn't look up. "Tell me," he said. Kareem's voice was low. "It felt like the world reminding me," he said, "that my body isn't the only thing that matters." Bruce nodded, as if that was the exact conclusion he wanted Kareem to reach. Kareem continued, eyes still on the set. "People look at me and they decide I'm strength," he said. "They decide I'm intimidation. They don't think about skill. Thought." Bruce's voice came soft. "I know," he said. Kareem glanced at him. "You do," he said. Bruce finally looked up. "They did it to you," Bruce said. "And they did it to me." Kareem's expression tightened. "Different ways," he said. Bruce nodded. "Same reduction," he replied. Kareem exhaled. "So you wanted me to feel what it's like to lose control," he said. Bruce's eyes stayed steady. "I wanted you to respect control," he corrected. Kareem's mouth twitched. "You're careful with words," he said. Bruce shrugged slightly. "Words are angles," he said. "Same as strikes." Kareem laughed quietly, then stopped, suddenly serious again. "For seconds," he murmured. Bruce nodded. "4," he confirmed. Kareem shook his head slowly. "That's insane," he said. But there was admiration in it now, not accusation. Bruce's voice stayed calm. "It's not insane," he said. "It's study." Kareem stared at him for a moment, then said something that sounded like surrender and respect at once. "Teach me," Kareem said. Bruce didn't react like a man being worshipped. He reacted like a man being asked to do what he already believed in. "All right," he said simply. "But you have to stop thinking like a giant." Kareem raised an eyebrow. "How do I do that?" Bruce answered without hesitation. "By learning where you're vulnerable," he said. Kareem frowned. "Giants don't like vulnerability," he admitted. Bruce's eyes softened slightly. That's why giants hurt people, he said quietly. Kareem blinked. The words hit him in a place he didn't show on his face. He looked away, then back. You're saying I could hurt someone without meaning to? Bruce nodded. Yes, he said. And you would regret it forever. Kareem swallowed hard. Bruce continued, voice gentle but firm. So don't rely on your size, he said. Rely on your awareness. Kareem stared. That's what you did, he said. Bruce nodded. Yes, he said. That's why I told you to aim. Kareem's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Because aiming makes you honest, he repeated. Bruce nodded. And honesty, he said, is the only place control can live. When the day wrapped and the crew began dismantling lights and rolling cables, the set looked less mythic. Yellow panels became painted wood again. The staircase became a prop again. The magic drained out of the room the way it always did when filming ended. But something remained. Something the crew would talk about later in quiet voices, not because it was scandal but because it was rare to witness. Two men with global stature choosing respect over performance. They wouldn't talk about the strike. They would talk about the stillness. They would talk about the moment Kareem's face changed when he realized he couldn't breathe. Not fear, not panic, but surprise at being reminded he was human. And they would talk about Bruce releasing immediately the second the lesson landed. No victory lap.
No humiliation.
Just precision and restraint. Years later, people would tell the story wrong on purpose because people like drama. They would say Bruce choked Kareem. They would say Kareem got put in his place. They would make it a dominant story because the world loves dominant stories. They sell. They feel satisfying to people who wish they could control others. But the truth of the moment, the real truth, was quieter. It wasn't about dominance. It was about responsibility. Bruce didn't say, aim for my chest, because he wanted to show off. He said it because he knew something Kareem didn't yet know. That holding back doesn't always make you safer. Sometimes it makes you sloppy. And sloppy is where accidents are born. He gave Kareem a lesson that didn't bruise the skin. It bruised the ego just enough to make room for respect. And Kareem, to his credit, accepted it. Not because he was forced, because he understood. Because 4 seconds without breath is long enough to remind any man, no matter how tall, no matter how strong, that control is not guaranteed. It's earned. It's practiced. It's chosen. That day on set, under hot lights and quiet eyes, a giant learned the difference between being powerful and being precise. And a smaller man proved something that had nothing to do with size. That the most dangerous skill in the world isn't the ability to take air away. It's the ability to stop yourself from doing it.